That was a Karen Reed update. I'm not gonna sit here and waste y'all's time. I'm gonna get into this update and get on up out y'all's way. Um, with that being said, here we go.
Did Karen Reed just turn the entire case upside down on people who prosecuted her?
I
We
hope
now
so.
have a 46-page civil complaint where Karen is no longer the defendant. She's the plaintiff. She's accusing the state police and key Canton House defendants of framing her, planting evidence, and covering for the real killer of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. I'm breaking down exactly what this lawsuit says happened inside of the house on Fairview, what it says cops did after, and what Karen is asking this new court to do about it.
And again, shout out to AB to the seventh power.
Hey y'all, welcome back to the channel. I'm AV, your friendly neighborhood legal commentator. And on this channel, we talk about all things law, true crime, and a little bit of debauchery. If you missed our live stream earlier this week where we went through this filing line by line, don't worry. This is your tight recap of Karen Reed's new civil lawsuit. As always, this is legal analysis, not legal advice. And remember, the complaint is one side of the story. None of these civil claims have been proven in court just yet. Civil, right? And the people Karen is suing deny these allegations. All right, let's start with what Karen just filed and against who. According to the complaint filed in Bristol Superior Court on November 17th, Karen is suing former state trooper Michael Proctor, his Massachusetts State Police supervisors Yuri Buchanan and Brian Tully, the so-called House defendants. Listen, I'm not even gonna hold you. When I read that in the complaint, it was really fun. Brian and Nicole Albert, Jennifer and Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins, the nefarious HIG. The lawsuit says the Massachusetts State Police and the town of Canton will be added later once the notice requirements are satisfied. Karen's legal team is bringing a mix of federal civil rights claims and state tort claims, including malicious prosecution under the Fourth Amendment, conspiracy to violate her Fourth Amendment rights, violations of the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act, common law, malicious prosecution, and of course, the intentional infliction of emotional distress. Let's not forget about civil conspiracy, and she's asking for a jury trial, damages, and attorney's fees. The complaint opens up with a very clear thesis. Karen Reed did not kill John O'Keefe. Instead, she alleges this. In the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, John O'Keefe is killed inside or in the garage at 34 Fairview Road during a physical altercation at the Alberts house after a night of heavy drinking. During that altercation, the Alberts German Shepherd, Chloe, allegedly attacks him, leaving dog bites and scratches on his right arm and forearm. The complaint says that his injuries, a deep gash to the back of his head, facial bruising, but no broken bones or lower body trauma, are consistent with a fall onto a ridged surface in a dog attack, and not consistent with being hit by a 3-ton SUV. It cites the Commonwealth's own medical examiner as having no signs of a car strike on John O'Keefe's body. The lawsuit claims the House defendants, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins, devised a plan. That plan was this. They allegedly Googled "house long to die in the cold" at 2:27 a.m., the famous line. They moved John's body outside, placed him on the lawn near where they later said Karen dropped him off. They also parked the Ford Edge in the way that blocked the view of the body from the street. And they staged the scene to look like Karen hit him with her SUV and left him there to die in the snow. Again, these are allegations. The House defendants have already put out statements saying that this is false, defamatory, and just more conspiracy narrative. The complaint then walks through the morning of Karen's point of view. Around 5 a.m., Karen wakes up and realizes that John never came home. She calls Jen McCabe. According to the lawsuit, Jen already knows what happened. Instead of telling Karen go straight to 34 Fairview, the complaint says that Jen steers her on a detour. First to the McCabe's house, then back to John's house. Only then to 34 Fairview, buying time, Karen says, for the House defendants to finish staging the scene. So when they finally approach Fairview with Carrie Roberts driving, Karen spots John's body in the snow, screams, jumps out of the moving car, and begins CPR. Jen McCabe, according to the complaint, does not help with CPR and does not run into the house to get Officer Brian Albert. Instead, she calls 911 from the car and reports that a man is passed out in the snow.
Shocking news. You're dead. Yeah, how'd you know?
Welcome to the junction, where you choose one place to spend eternity and who to spend it with.
How's this guy? First, we can go to space for all I care, as long as Luke's not floating around.
What if I don't know what to choose?
Is it how you imagined it?
It's perfect.
Where's my parents? How do I see that?
You could definitely go see your parents, but then,
You'd be with my parents for eternity.
I almost didn't take this partnership with Hero Cosmetics because I was so sure this wouldn't work, but this had me shook. The Hero Cosmetics Dark Spot Corrector, and it claims to reduce the appearance.
The filing explicitly calls this illogical route intentional, designed to give more time to hide or manipulate evidence before first responders arrived. If you follow this channel, you know I cover high-profile legal cases, legal battles, and the way the justice system actually works. But here's the reality. When it comes to your personal information, there's no real protections in place. That's why I use Aura, today's sponsor. Aura does all the heavy lifting to keep you safe online. They go after data brokers who are selling your personal information and automatically opt you out. Since I started using Aura, I've personally seen a huge drop in what? Robocalls and spam calls, because those companies can't find me anymore. And let's talk about the legal implications of stolen data. If your info is floating around on the dark web, it only takes one bad actor to cause serious problems. Aura monitors 24/7 and alerts you immediately if your private details like your social security number, your passwords, financial records, or court-related data are exposed. They monitor your credit and financial accounts in real time. So if someone tries to open an account in your name, you'll know instantly you can shut it down before it becomes a legal mess. And let's be real, hiring a lawyer to clean up an identity theft case, that's thousands of dollars. But Aura backs you up with up to $5 million in identity theft insurance just in case the worst happens. Plus, Aura comes with a built-in VPN that lets you browse privately with 100+ virtual locations. So your search history, personal data, and locations stay hidden. Because let's be honest, in today's world, privacy is power. So let me ask you this. Does your current VPN do all of that? Didn't think so. Take control of your digital cybersecurity today. Scan the QR code or go to Karen alleges that Proctor grew up in Canton, still lives there, and his family is extremely close to the Alberts. Despite those ties, he's assigned as lead investigator, and his supervisors let it happen. From day one, Proctor and the Massachusetts State Police allegedly refused to treat the House defendants as suspects. They never searched the inside of the Alberts' house or garage. They never examined the German Shepherd despite documented dog bite injuries on John's arm. They didn't physically examine the House defendants for bruises, cuts, or injuries. They didn't seize or forensically search phones from the Alberts, McCabe's, or Higgins. Many interviews were unrecorded, delayed, and casual, at homes, offices, or over the phone, not like a normal homicide investigation. Instead, the complaint says investigators let the House defendants coordinate their stories, delete texts, and even allegedly destroy phones, including a description of Brian Higgins driving to a base on Cape Cod, cutting his SIM card with scissors, and throwing the phone and card into separate dumpsters.
In any case, you took the SIM card out of your phone, correct?
No, what I testified to was that
Did you take the SIM card out of your phone, yes or no?
I don't know.
And you either cut up the SIM card or ripped it up, correct?
I believe what I testified to was
I'm
I
not
would
asking
have
you what you testified to. I'm asking you today, did you either cut up the SIM card or rip it up?
cut it up or broke it.
And you'll agree with me that you took that destroyed SIM card and put it in a trash bag, did you not?
I believe it went in a trash bag, yes.
Are you reluctant to say that?
No, Your Honor, I put it in a trash bag. Oh, with my
And then
trash.
you also took your phone now without the SIM card, and you put that in the trash bag too, did you not?
Yes, sir.
Then you drove to a military base and you threw both the destroyed SIM card and the phone into a dumpster, did you not?
Well, I was cutting through
That's
a base, and I believe
suspicious.
how I
That's
testified
It was a
weird.
military base, sir.
I was cutting through a base.
That's suspicious. That's weird.
Did
Yes.
you drive to it?
Yes, sir.
And then you put both the destroyed SIM card and the phone itself, which were in a trash bag, into a dumpster on that military base, did you not?
I believe that's what I did, yes.
And as you were driving away, you knew that that destroyed SIM card and the phone would be gone forever, correct?
Yes, I threw it away.
Karen's lawyers say all of this allowed potentially exculpatory evidence, things that might have helped her to be destroyed forever. Now, the complaint spends a lot of time on Proctor's conduct and the evidence handling. According to the filing, within hours of John's body being found, Proctor is texting his friends that the Alberts are not going to get any for this because he's a Boston cop, that he wants the case to be cut and dry, and that he's going to bring serious charges against the girl, meaning Karen. He says there's zero chance she skates and that she's before he has even stepped inside 34 Fairview. In other texts, he calls Karen retarded, a whack job, see you next Tuesday, a nutbag, comments on her body and crudely references her medical condition. He mocks her while claiming to be searching her phone for nudes and at one point writes, hopefully, she offs herself. The lawsuit says that his supervisor, Sergeant Buchanan, reacts to at least one of those texts with a thumbs up emoji instead of checking his bias. Then we get to the taillight. The taillight. Karen's Lexus is seized and taken to the Canton PD Sallyport. The complaint claimed when the car left Dighton, the taillight had a minor crack from Karen backing into John's car that morning, captured on video. After arriving at Canton PD, the red rear taillight is suddenly almost completely destroyed. Video inside the Sallyport is allegedly missing a key 42-minute block that would show the condition of the taillight when it arrived. And another camera angle is allegedly inverted, so that left and right are flipped. Just flipping, flapping. Karen's team says one or more people in that Sallyport broke the taillight, pocketed the pieces, and then planted them back at 34 Fairview, near where John's body was found, and later on John's clothing, which Proctor had collected and kept unsecured for weeks before the crime lab ever logged it. Glass fragments were planted on Karen's bumper to suggest the SUV hit a cocktail glass in John's hand. But forensic testing later showed the shards came from multiple different sources, including one that matched a piece in Proctor's possession. On top of that, the suit accuses Proctor of lying in affidavits about the time he seized the Lexus, shaving more than an hour off the window when he and others had exclusive control over the vehicle. Now, there's a whole section on damages. Karen's complaint says that because of this alleged...
Here's what I have to say to the McAlberts. That's the McAlberts for you.
frame job and the 2 prosecutions. She lost her job and professorship. She lost her private health insurance, her house, her car, and her license. She's now in millions of dollars in debt from legal fees and expert costs. She's living with severe emotional trauma after being jailed twice, facing the possibility of spending the rest of her life in prison for a murder she says she did not commit. And on top of that, the complaint details her Crohn's disease and multiple sclerosis and says the stress of the criminal case caused significant flare-ups and dozens of medical treatments during those 3.5 years. Her legal team's big line, and you'll see this quoted in all of the news articles, is that she was dragged through a baseless criminal prosecution engineered by individuals who abused their authority, manipulated the investigative process, and trampled her rights. Now, the actual legal claims in plain English. Let me translate the count section into normal language. Federal malicious prosecution. Karen says Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully caused her to be arrested, indicted, and dragged through 2 trials without probable cause because the case was built on fabricated evidence and they ignored exculpatory facts. Now let's talk about supervisor liability. She argues that Buchanan and Tully didn't just fail to notice that as supervisors, they knew or should have known that Proctor was biased and conflicted, and they allowed him to keep leading the investigation anyway. Talk about federal conspiracy. This is Karen saying these folks didn't act in silos. The Massachusetts State Police troopers and the House defendants allegedly worked together, explicitly or implicitly, to push the story that John never went into the house and that Karen hit him with her car while burying any evidence that pointed back inside 34 Fairview. Now, we have the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act. That's the state-level version of saying they use threats, intimidation, or coercion in the form of a bogus prosecution to trample her constitutional rights. Then you have common law malicious prosecution. Same core idea as the federal claim, but now under Massachusetts common law. The big one, intentional infliction of emotional distress. Karen is saying, you didn't just make mistakes. What you did was outrageous, calculated, and you had to know it would absolutely wreck me emotionally and physically. Civil conspiracies here. State law. Again, the everybody acted together piece, alleging the troopers and the House defendants agreed on a common plan. Protect the house, frame the girlfriend. For almost every count, Karen ties back to the same core harm. Years of prosecution, loss of her livelihood and reputation, massive debt, and serious emotional and physical injury. Karen is still a defendant in a wrongful death lawsuit filed by the O'Keefe family, who continue to claim she killed him with her SUV. That case was put on hold until the criminal trial finished and is now back in play. Lawyers for the Alberts, McCabe's, and Higgins have already threatened or signaled a possible defamation lawsuit against Karen and a local blogger. And they put out a statement calling her allegations entirely false, defamatory, and without merit. So now you have parallel civil wars. The O'Keefe family versus Karen Read for wrongful death.
Hi, roofing. We know that a roof is more than just a roof. It's spending quality time with the family. And it's a good night's sleep. For over 50 years, we've been your neighbor, making sure you're covered.
SoFi's helping me get my money right to achieve my ambitions, like saving for a better swing.
Loosen that grip.
With SoFi, I...
Read for wrongful death. And now you have Karen Read versus the Massachusetts State Troopers and the House defendants. And that is based on civil rights and tort claims. And possibly the House defendants versus Karen and the blogger for defamation, if that filing actually happens. This complaint is Karen basically saying, you tried to put me away for life. Now, you come answer questions under oath. Whether we ever see a jury on this or it settles quietly is a whole nother question. Procedurally, here's what we can expect next. The named defendants will be served if they haven't already been. Their lawyers will likely file motions to dismiss, arguing the facts don't add up to the claims Karen is making, and raising defenses
Most likely,
like
that's what they're
immunity.
going to
If
do.
the case survives these motions, then we're in discovery land. That's going to include depositions of Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins. Document requests, internal Massachusetts State Police materials, or text messages, emails, video records, and maybe more we haven't seen yet. We'll be tracking every single filing on this channel. All right, I want to hear from you, dear viewer. Based on what we've seen in this civil complaint, this one, do you think Karen's civil case ever makes it all the way to a jury? Or do you think the state and these witnesses do everything in their power to settle this in the dark? Drop your thoughts in the comment section. We read everything. Keep it respectful. And remember, these are allegations until a civil jury or judge says otherwise. However, if you watch the criminal trial with me, you might have a different opinion. If this breakdown helped you understand the lawsuit, hit the like, share this with someone who followed the trial, and make sure you're subscribed with your notifications on. Because as soon as the response hits that docket, I'll be right back here breaking it down for you. I'm AV, this is AV to the 7th power, and I'll see you in the next one. Stay safe out there. Bye.
Here we go.
I'm also just a girl
Ah, crap, not that.
standing in front of a boy.
Here we go. To the McAlberts, y'all done effed around and found out with Karen Reed.
Fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Oh, you're about to find out. So fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Walking down the street, some asshole's glued to his phone. Head so far up his ass, you don't know where he's going. Slams right into me, not a single damn word. I think, motherfucker, you've got some nerve. Then some douche on a bike flies through a red light, flips me off like he wants to fight. I step off the curb, but he's gone like a flash. I'm burning inside, ready to whoop some ass. If you're looking to fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Oh, you're about to find out. If you're looking to fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Don't catch that knockdown. At the coffee shop, some prick cuts a line with a grin. Acting like they're special. Think again, my friend. I clear my throat, give him a deadly glare. You look back like what? I say, don't you fucking dare. Please fuck around, please, so I can help you find out. Find out right now. Please fuck around, please. If you're looking to fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Oh, you're about to find out. If you're looking to fuck around, I'd love to help you find out. Don't get that knocked out. Got a mental list of idiots and it's growing fast. From the selfish to the clueless, love to hook that ass. Keep thinking you're slick, like you're running the show, but I'm ready to help you find out. Let's go. Please fuck around, please, so I can help you find out. Find out right now. Please fuck around, please. If you let it to.
Okay, enough of that. Here we go. AV to a 7.
I'm gonna do it. This is how we start every stream. Hi everybody, it's me, AV. Welcome back to another Power Hour. Breaking news, Karen Reed is suing everybody. Karen Reed said, watch out. I'm not playing with y'all anymore. Watch out. I'm coming for your neck. And we are diving into that lawsuit. Today is Tuesday, November 18th, and we are going to read this lovely 46-page document. Now, so many people are covering it. Everybody and their mama is covering it. So I'm just gonna read through it real quick, give you guys my perspective, my legal perspective, and we will go from there. Shout out to everybody that's coming in the chat. Couple reminders, do me a huge favor, hit the like button as you are on your way in. This dropped this morning, was filed yesterday afternoon at about 3 o'clock. Couple channel announcements. We're gonna go live again on Thursday on the Courtney Clenny thing. We were just live this past Sunday, so that was fantastic. Really looking forward to diving into this document as well. December is shaping up to be very busy with a lot of cases that we're covering, as well as January. So we're here. I've got my Too Cute by Half shirt on, right? And we're gonna jump back into it. Honestly, I haven't been wanting to touch the Karen Reed case. My day ones know why. But we are doing it today. Also, just really want to get my mind off of stuff. I don't know if you guys have heard about what's going on in LawTube this week, but Nate the lawyer, one of the only Black attorneys on this platform and a personal friend of me and the lead attorney, he had been diagnosed with a brain tumor. So he's going through surgery right now. Everybody in the LawTube community, we're all cheering him on, and we're praying for him and his family right now. So a little bit of a somber thing, but you know, this week, every stream that I do, I am starting off with prayers up for Nate the lawyer, just because he means a lot to me. He's one of the only people that really gave me a shot on this platform as somebody to collab with. So I hope he is doing well. We are all praying for him, and we hope that he is going to pull through. So as soon as I know anything, I will let you guys know. So still, you know, keep your notifications on, all of that stuff. And we're gonna make sure that Nate is good. But this news about Nate had been shared Saturday, and it's not like, you know, people are making rumors up about him. He personally shared this news on his channel and with his community. And again, he's done a lot for me personally. He's done a lot for Lead. So, you know, we are starting every single stream this week with prayers for Nate the lawyer. Okay, chat, are y'all ready to get into this debauchery? It's gonna be the news of the day. Everybody and their mama is covering it, but we are going to look at it, at least, you know, shed some light from my perspective, right? So let's take a look, and I know I've got some cash apps that already came in, super chats that came in as well. I will read those towards the end of the stream. I really want to dive into this one because I want to see what Karen's team has said here. And before we dive into it, Karen's team has actually put out a formal statement. This came from Ted Daniel a few minutes ago, I think about an hour ago. So why don't we start with the statement and go from there. So let me stop sharing for 1 second. Actually, I'll just read it to y'all. This is the statement. So we have statements from both sides. We have statements from Karen Reed's team, and then we have statements from the attorneys from Brian Higgins, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Jen McCabe, and Matt McCabe. So let's start with, and I am gonna have to show it to y'all. Let's start with that. So let's stop sharing for a second.
Didn't buy this NFL wallet, but when Black Friday hit and it was up to 42% off, I finally gave it a shot. My old leather wallet was bulky, bent out of shape, and honestly embarrassing. This one, it's slim, it holds up to 12 cards in cash, and the RFID blocking plates mean my info actually stays secure. I added the AirTag holder so I never lose it, and since it's the NFL edition, I get to carry my team every single day. I bought mine first, now I'm getting one for my brother too. No wonder Rich has over 100,000 5-star reviews. With a 99-day risk-free trial and a lifetime warranty, this is the wallet upgrade that actually delivers. Black Friday is live now. Get your team's wallet today at Ridge.com.
We are about to do something that was pretty insane here. We are using the new pigskin and pigtail press. We are actually going to protect.
And I am going to have to show it to y'all. Let's start with that. So let's stop sharing for a second. Share screen. Let's go over to good old Ted on Twitter. All right. So let's start with this statement from Alan Jackson and Karen Reed's civil team, okay? It says, today's filing speaks for itself. It is a meticulously documented civil action grounded in evidence, law, and the Constitution. For more than 3 years, Karen Reed was dragged through a baseless criminal prosecution engineered by individuals who abused their authority, manipulated the investigative process, and trampled her rights. Our complaint lays out in stark detail the meticulous prosecution, the conspiracy, the civil rights violations, and the intentional misconduct that these defendants visited upon an innocent woman. If these defendants want to answer for that under oath, we welcome it. AJ said, let's go. AJ said, come on, Let's go. We welcome it. Okay? We welcome it. Let me make myself smaller so y'all can follow along. What we will not do is legitimize a threat to file some imaginary defamation case. Oh, get him, AJ. That threat is nothing more than a desperate attempt by those defendants to distract the public from the very real legal jeopardy they now face. When people start waving around defamation claims, oh shit, to mask their own legal troubles, it tells you everything you need to know. They don't want sunlight, they want silence. Karen Read spent years fighting for her freedom against a corrupted investigation. Now she is fighting for accountability. And unlike the criminal case, this time the defendants don't get to hide behind badges, back channel favors, or manufactured narratives. They will have to answer in the court of law for every lie, every omission, every manipulated report, and every constitutional violation they committed. Karen Read is not backing down. Our team is not backing down. Accountability is coming, and these defendants can threaten all the phantom lawsuits they want. But the truth does not flinch. Y'all give it up for AJ. I mean, this is such a great writer. It's beautifully written. Oh, AJ, that was great. One more time for AJ. Okay, one more time. Wow. Look at that. All right, so that right there, chat, that is the response from Karen Read's team after this has hit the news this morning, okay? Now we are going to scroll up and see what the Canton 8, is that what people are calling them now, the Canton 8?
They got a name for
What
these
the response
idiots.
is from the defendants in this lawsuit. Now, this is not a surprise because we knew it was coming. Karen Read had a hearing about a month ago. A few of us have watched it here. And in that hearing, she was getting ready for the civil side of the lawsuit from the O'Keefe family, right? And, you know, that was against Karen and the bars. The judge in that case said, hey, if you want to countersue everybody, it's going to be a longer process. So it might make sense to separate everything, right? If you separate everything, we'll be ready to go to trial as early as March. So that was the last conversation with the judge. Now, this past Friday, the case, that civil case had been transferred to a different judge, right? So that judge is no longer on the case. It's a new one. Now, a lot of people haven't been talking about that. I was actually really surprised that there wasn't more chatter about this over the weekend. But that case has now been assigned to a different judge. So for me, when I'm seeing all this come out, I'm like, oh, well, now this makes sense. Karen's team is actually doing what the judge had instructed. And in exchange, you see that civil case generated by the O'Keefe family is moving through the process. And that actually could start. I mean, now that she's separating everything, it could start a little bit earlier. Now, here's the other thing. Yesterday, the defendants, because we're about to read their statement, the defendants were talking about how they were going to sue Karen Read. They were going to initiate a lawsuit against her. Now, they publicly said that yesterday. You know what Karen's team did? They didn't say anything. They didn't say anything at all. AJ was like, that was too cute. It was too cute by half, okay? That was cute. But we're going to kill y'all in the morning. Like, not literally, but meaning we're going to hit you with a lawsuit in the morning. And that's exactly what happened.
As it should.
Now that has happened, thank you so much, Nurse Janice. That judge has retired. That was the reason why I think he had known that. Not Bev. This is the gentleman. He seemed younger to me. That was assigned at the civil case that the O'Keefe family generated, has retired. And that was the reason why that civil case has been reassigned to another judge. All right. Now, let's look at what the other side says here. All right, so that's Karen's statement. So Ted reached out and he has a statement from the attorneys for Brian Higgins, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert, Jen McCabe, and Matt McCabe. It says, the allegations made by Karen Reed are entirely false, defamatory, and without merit. Our clients categorically deny each and every claim. This lawsuit is nothing more than a continuation of baseless conspiracy, nothing more than a baseless conspiracy narrative that has caused significant harm to the reputations and lives of innocent people. Our clients acted responsibly, fulfilling their civil duty as witnesses, and have participated appropriately in the legal process from the outset. Ms. Reed's claims distort the facts, they misrepresent the evidence, and target private citizens in an attempt to deflect blame. As reported yesterday, we will hold Ms. Reed accountable for the harm she has inflicted and the conspiracy she and Aiden Carney, also known as Turtle Boy, have manufactured. So that's the end of the quote. It is interesting. I want to now read it. And see what is in Karen's lawsuit, because it's a long time coming, but you've heard that very fiery statement from Karen's team. Like, we're not backing down. These people, they did a lot of things that breached her rights, right? So let's take a peek at it. Now it is time. We're going to stop screen sharing and let's pull up that PDF, because I can't wait, chat. I really can't.
Let better than bouillon magic begin when you scoop a spoonful and stir it in. Breakfast casseroles and green beans with flair, prime rib, or deviled eggs to share. Because everything is better with better than bouillon.
In this game, focus is everything. So when the noise gets too loud, I tune it out. Because when greatness is the goal, you gotta have the best to be the best.
Here we go. Here it is. Are we ready? Let's go in. Let's see what's all the tea is about. But here we go. I'm gonna make myself small so that way you guys can follow along with me. All right. So this was filed yesterday, November 17th. I think the timestamp right up top is around 3:14 p.m. All right. So we can see that this was yesterday afternoon as far as a filing filed in Bristol County. Okay. This is Karen Reed, the plaintiff. She's going up against Proctor, okay? She's going up against Buchanan. She's looking at Tully. She's looking at Brian Albert, right? Nicole Albert, Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins. Iggy, all right? Now let's read it. Okay. For 3.5 years, plaintiff Karen Reed was wrongfully accused of homicide and subjected to suspicion, arrest, 2 prosecutions, and public condemnation, all resulting from the gross misconduct of the Massachusetts State Police and those working in tandem with the Massachusetts State Police to shield from liability the party or parties responsible for the death of Boston police officer John O'Keefe. Now, you know what's interesting, chat, that I just noticed? Look at all the people up here. You know who's missing or what is missing from this group as an entity from the defendant pool? The Massachusetts State Police. Now, when she was doing that whole countersuit during that hearing last month, she included the Massachusetts State Police, but now she's coming after these people individually. So that's new. All right, let's keep going. Now, after being acquitted of all charges relating to Mr. O'Keefe's death, Ms. Reed brings this action to recover for and address the actions of those actually involved in Mr. O'Keefe's death and the law enforcement officers who objectively failed to ensure that justice was sought and served in the aftermath of January 29, 2022. All right, so that's the first thing. Next, Karen Reed did not kill her then boyfriend, Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, in the early morning hours of January 29th, Mr. O'Keefe was killed in the defendants, Brian and Nicole Albert's home. They said in the home. Oh, Karen said, watch out. In the home. In an altercation. Oh, that's new. Well, not new. We knew it, but she's actually saying it. During a late night house party with other defendants, collectively known as the House Defendants. Oh, we're calling them the House Defendants now, Chad. Like, they are the House Defendants. Okay? These people are the House Defendants. I love this already. We are on, for everybody coming in, hit the like button, share it out to more people. We're only on paragraph 2. And already we have them known as the House Defendants. After a night of heavy drinking, the House Defendants responsible for Mr. O'Keefe's death, some of whom had professional experience with police investigations, concocted a plan immediately after the altercation to avoid culpability and to frame Karen Read. Rather than call first responders for help, among other actions, the House Defendants conducted a Google search for information about what? Y'all know, how long to die in the cold. Wow. Moved Mr. O'Keefe's body outside, placed him on the Alberts front lawn near the road to make it look like Mr. O'Keefe was hit by a vehicle. Then he died in the snow without ever coming into the house that night. Mr. O'Keefe's body remained on the Alberts lawn until Karen Read found him later that morning. From the beginning, investigators from the Massachusetts State Police allowed the House Defendants to direct the investigation away from themselves and towards Miss Read. The House Defendants were a well-connected and close social group with strong ties to law enforcement. The Alberts are a prominent family in Canton, and the investigating police officers knew them well. The lead investigator, Michael Proctor, grew up in Canton and resides there to this day. He has been and remains close personal friends with the Albert family. House Defendant, now they go individual. It's the House Defendants, but each one of them is going to be known as a House Defendant, right? Brian Albert was a longtime Boston Police Department officer, and House Defendant Brian Higgins was an agent with the ATF. Number 4, adhering to the unwritten rule of protecting their own, Proctor and his Massachusetts colleagues intentionally disregarded the obvious and compelling evidence tying the House Defendants to O'Keefe's murder. Specifically, Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were consistent with a physical altercation. He had bruises and lacerations on his face, a deep gash in the back of his head, suggesting that he was punched and fell backwards, hitting his head on a ridged surface. He also had dog bite wounds and scratches on his right arm and forearm. Equally evident, Mr. O'Keefe did not have a single injury consistent with being struck by a vehicle. See, this is important. They're saying this stuff in this document. Not a single injury. He did not have any broken bones or even a bruise on his legs, feet, arms, shoulders, torso, back, ribs, or anywhere below his neck that a medical examiner would otherwise expect to find on a person struck and killed by an impact from a 3-ton vehicle. And to erase any doubt, the Commonwealth's own medical examiner, the pathologist who conducted the autopsy for the Commonwealth, concluded that Mr. O'Keefe's body showed no signs of a vehicular strike. Interesting. And real quick, guys, I know we have a lot of colleagues that are reading this document. I said this at the beginning. Everybody and their mama is reading it. Melanie, so much love for Melanie. I did see her live reading this. Nick Starro, I saw him live reading this. Everybody's reading it. It is the hot news of the day. And the great thing is that you have so many different perspectives where everybody wants a take from their favorite YouTubers, and we all understand that, right? So much love to Melanie and the cupcakes. We love her over here. Let's keep going.
Every bite of the Philly cheesesteak, and I'm like, yeah, that's why I ordered. My nose. Metal Supermarkets, the convenience stores for metal, proudly serving the Greenville area.
Despite that, Proctor and others shielded the House defendants by intentionally sidestepping fundamental investigatory procedures. Propelled by the House defendants' false statements, including that Mr. O'Keefe never went into the house, Proctor reported in text messages just hours into the investigation that the House defendants weren't going to get any shit for this because he's a Boston cop. And when they said that, they clarified that they meant Brian Albert is a Boston cop, and that Proctor was determined to make the investigation cut and dry, bringing charges against the girl. Indeed, Proctor made his intentions clear in writing, Karen Reed had zero chance of skating. She's fucked. This pronouncement was a mere 16 hours after O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn, and Proctor had not even walked into the house. True to his promise, Proctor and his colleagues did not search the house for blood evidence, right? This is why everybody was like so surprised by this case. Like, why didn't you go inside? You didn't look for blood evidence inside. You didn't look for any evidence inside. You just questioned people. That's a little strange. Resulting from the gash to the back of the neck of Mr. O'Keefe's head, or for fingerprints, or for DNA evidence. Proctor did not search the house despite the fact that Mr. O'Keefe was discovered without a winter coat, without a hat that several witnesses said he had been wearing that night, and without his left shoe. At Proctor's direction, the house was never processed by a criminalist or even photographed. No member of the Massachusetts State Police, including Proctor, set foot inside 34 Fairview for nearly a week. The police did not examine or take evidence from the Alberts German Shepherd that was in that house on January 29th, a dog that had a history of attacking other dogs and people. Neither Proctor nor any of the Massachusetts state troopers conducted physical examinations of the House defendants for evidence of involvement in the altercation, such as marks on hands, knuckles, or face, or bruises on their bodies. They did not seize or search the House defendants' phones, or even bruises on their bodies. They did not seize or search the House defendants' phones. They conducted only unrecorded conversations with Proctor's friends, Proctor's friends and acquaintances, without any attempts to corroborate their stories. Called them Proctor's friends and acquaintances. Interesting. They permitted would-be witnesses to communicate with each other and coordinate their stories before any formal interviews. They allowed critical evidence to be manipulated in some instances and outright destroyed in others. In short, by focusing the investigation solely on Ms. Reed as implicitly directed by the House defendants, through the misrepresentations they made to the police, Proctor and his colleagues disregarded and failed to obtain pertinent interviews and other critical evidence from the House defendants that cannot now be recovered or recreated. That's right. Proctor also secretly communicated with the Alberts on his personal phone, deliberately back-channeling those communications to circumvent his state-issued device, and used his sister as a conduit. For instance, on multiple occasions, Proctor disclosed critical and confidential info about the investigation to his sister, who passed that information to her close friend, Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law. Julie Albert then passed that same information to the rest of her family and the House defendants. Part of the communication included Julie Albert's promise to buy Proctor a thank you gift for handling this investigation in a manner that intentionally avoided implicating the House defendants, singularly focusing on Ms. Reed. Proctor then went so far as to manufacture evidence to ensure that Ms. Reed, not his friends and fellow law enforcement officers, was blamed for John's death. This included planting evidence at the scene, on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes, and on Mr. Wow, they're literally saying it. This included planting evidence at the scene. on the clothes on her vehicle to support the false narrative that Miss Reed hit John with her car, even though he knew Mr. O'Keefe's injuries were inconsistent with a motor vehicle strike and consistent with a physical altercation and dog attack. Far from conducting an objective investigation with integrity, Proctor personally sexualized and dehumanized Miss Reed throughout the investigation. Specifically, Proctor's private communications to his high school buddies, sister, and MSP colleagues that he believed would never be discovered exposed the corruption and bias at the core of the MSP's entire investigation. Specifically, only hours into the investigation, in a text chain with 8 of his high school buddies, Proctor said that Miss Reed was a whack job, see you next Tuesday, retarded, a nutbag, and a babe with no ass. Proctor further ridiculed and derided Miss Reed for her serious medical condition, stating that her balloon knot leaked poo. In other private text messages to his MSP supervisors and colleagues, Proctor bragged that while conducting the search of Miss Reed's phone, he was looking for naked pictures of Miss Reed. Disappointed, he reported that there were no nudes so far. Disappointed, he reported. That was actually funny. In an unfiltered utterance, Proctor revealed his true mindset. Hopefully, she kills herself. Indeed, Proctor's supervisors and the MSP knew about and condemned Proctor's unlawful conduct, and in some instances expressly encouraged this flagrant abuse of power. For example, on one occasion, Proctor's immediate supervisor, Buchanan, responded with a thumbs up emoji to a text calling Miss Reed retarded. Oh, Yuri, I forgot you did that, Yuri. Proctor's supervisors and the MSP knew Proctor had a close relationship with the Alberts and that he made no secret to his bias against Miss Reed, demonstrating a clear prejudice against her from the outset. Relying on the manufactured evidence, actively ignoring exculpatory evidence, and without investigating obvious signs pointing towards the House defendants, the Commonwealth secured 2 separate arrest warrants for Miss Reed and knowingly baseless indictment against her, and then wrongfully prosecuted her for murder twice. As alleged below, these unlawful acts not only underlie plaintiff's meritless wrongful death claim against Miss Reed, but they also form the foundation for Miss Reed's claims against the defendants. These acts violated Miss Reed's state and federal constitutional rights, the Massachusetts Civil Rights Act, and well-established Massachusetts tort principles. On June 18, 2025, after a 2-month trial, a jury rejected the Commonwealth's theory in part because the overwhelming physical, scientific, and medical evidence established that Miss Reed's vehicle did not strike Mr. O'Keefe, and that Mr. O'Keefe's injuries did not come from a vehicle strike. Although Miss Reed was ultimately and finally acquitted of all charges related to the death of Mr. O'Keefe, Proctor was fired, and nearly every Massachusetts state police officer in Proctor's chain of command was disciplined for their egregious abuses and misdeeds. The Commonwealth still has not sought or provided justice, not to the O'Keefe family, not to the community at large, and certainly not to Miss Reed. In response, the Commonwealth has offered only empty platitudes instead of solutions. The head of MSP, Jeff Noble, stated, "The events of the last 3 years have challenged our department to thoroughly review our actions and take concrete steps to deliver advanced investigative training, ensure appropriate oversight, and enhance accountability. Under my direction as the head of it, the state police has and will continue to improve in these regards." In an interview with the Boston Herald, Noble acknowledged the systematic nature of the police's conduct in Karen's case. "I'm eyes wide open to a culture issue that I have concerns with as it relates to Trooper Proctor. These hollow words do nothing to right the devastating wrongs that have been visited on Miss Reed." Noble's words confess a sickness deep in the marrow of the MSP. Not sickness, will offer no remedy, no medicine, no relief to someone who so brutally victimized by it. On March 19th, following the public disclosure of Proctor's illegal and unethical conduct related to the Reed investigation, the trial board found Michael Proctor guilty, that's in caps, of a Class A violation, which included that he was biased in his dealings with a homicide suspect or bought otherwise on himself and the Massachusetts State Police into disrepute. Miss Reed's life was not merely turned upside down by the Massachusetts State Police and the House defendant's misconduct. It was forever changed by the defendant's transgressions and wrongdoing. The years of uncertainty and unimaginable emotional distress have left lasting scars that will never heal. At the same time, neither Mr. O'Keefe nor his family has received justice. His killer or killers still walk free. By asserting her claims against Massachusetts State Police, Proctor, his supervisors, the town of Canton, and the House defendants, Miss Reed seeks, at minimum, to confront and redress these wrongs and others. More importantly, she seeks to force the Commonwealth to fulfill its duty to stop law enforcement from trampling the innocent to protect their own. Wow, Chad. I mean, that's a great start. It is a great start.
Very great start.
So whoever is writing this or the team that worked together to write this, they did a great job. Let's keep going. So here are the parties. So you have Karen, who is the plaintiff. Let's talk about the defendant. So we're gonna go to Proctor, right? He lives in Canton still. He is being sued in his personal capacity, not as a police officer for state police. You have Buchanan. He is a state police officer. He lives in Stoughton. He is being sued in his personal capacity as well. Tully as well. He's in Hingham. He's being sued in his personal capacity. Looks like the Alberts have moved. Brian and Nicole are now in Norwood. They're in Norwood, Massachusetts now, right? The McCabe's are still in Canton, it looks like. So Janet and Matt. And Higgins is in Sandwich. All right, so he's down south. Jurisdiction and venue. So the court has jurisdiction over all these claims. Venue's appropriate.
You don't have to make feet content to pay for your trip. Just use Kayak. They search hundreds of sites to find great deals.
Really?
Kayak.
Get the Freddy Fazbear Crunch menu, only at Popeyes, before he gets you. Love that chicken from Popeyes.
Facts common to all counts. Let's start with his death. Before his death, John and Karen were dating. On the evening of the 28th, John and Karen went out. They first went to McCarthy's in Canton, where they had several drinks. Then they went to the waterfall in Canton. There, they met up with a group of acquaintances that included Brian Albert, Nicole Albert, Brian's brother Chris Albert, his wife Julie, Jen McCabe, Nicole's sister, and Brian's sister-in-law, her husband Matt McCabe, and Brian Higgins. The group of acquaintances had several drinks and planned to continue the party back at the Alberts' home at 34 Fairview. McCabe told John O'Keefe that he should come to the house. The group had overlapping social relationships. At the time, Brian Albert was a police officer, as was Mr. O'Keefe, though they did not know each other well. Brian Albert and Brian Higgins were close friends. Let's keep that in mind. Higgins was an officer at the ATF. He also was permitted to keep an office at the Canton Police Department alongside Brian Albert's brother, Kevin Albert. Kevin Albert had a professional and social relationship with Michael Proctor. So all these people we know are connected. Brian and Nicole Albert's son, Brian Albert Jr., and his friends were already at the house for Brian Jr.'s birthday. In addition, Colin Albert, let's see what they say about Colin, was present. Miss Reed and Mr. O'Keefe had never been to that house before January 29, 2022. They arrived in front of the home at 12:20. Miss Reed was reluctant to attend the party for several reasons, including that she was unsure whether they were at the correct location whether they were even welcome to the late night party. John got out of the car and indicated that he would check out the party and report back to her. John walked towards the front door, garage area of the house, and entered one of those doors. Interesting. A period of time passed without any word from John. Karen, who was still hesitant to join, presumed that John intended to stay, and therefore she left to go home without him. At some point after entering the house/garage, John was involved in a physical altercation either inside the house or garage. During that altercation, the Albert's German Shepherd attacked him, and Mr. O'Keefe sustained multiple dog bites and scratches on his right arm. He also suffered an incapacitating Contrecoups. Oh my God, I sound like, what's his name? The prosecutor. the wounds on the back of his head. Mr. O'Keefe's head wound was caused by falling backward and striking a ridged surface. The Albert's garage contained such surfaces. By contrast, the head wound could not even have been caused by a vehicle strike or falling backward onto a flat, cold lawn, like the Alberts. Because of their knowledge of criminal investigations, the Alberts, the McCabe's, and Higgins, House defendants, knew that calling for medical care to help save Mr. O'Keefe's life would trigger immediate and irreversible risk to their own criminal exposure. Therefore, at least the 5 of them agreed on a simple plan to exonerate themselves and implicate Miss Reed. They would tell anyone who inquired John never entered the house and hide evidence that he was there, including his body. Sometime during that night, they repositioned a Ford Edge vehicle at a spot adjacent to the front lawn, which obscured the view of the area of the lawn for potential passerbys. At some point further in the night, you know what? They did not talk about this Ford Edge during a trial, or at least a second trial, very lightly. At some point further in the night, they carried and dragged John's body to that same area in the yard, close to where one or more of them later claimed Miss Reed dropped off Mr. O'Keefe earlier that night. I think her name is Jen. Not even I think, we know her name is Jen. The plan was devised to make it appear that Mr. O'Keefe had been struck by Karen's vehicle and then died as a result of exposure to the cold. Mr. O'Keefe was either dead when the defendants left him on the lawn, or he died shortly after. After the physical altercation, Higgins left the house and drove to the Canton Police Department in the middle of the night. Oh yeah, y'all remember that footage? The nefarious HIG? He later told investigators he had to do some administrative work, but then changed his story subsequently, stating that he drove to the station because he had to move cars in the parking lot due to the snowstorm. However, video from inside the station shows Higgins walking down the hallway and entering offices while wearing a hoodie to obscure his face. Let's not forget, he was also under the influence. Surveillance video outside reveals Higgins transporting a large bag from one vehicle to another before driving away. Man, they're bringing all the tea in this document, chat. Let's keep going. After leaving the police station, Higgins and Brian Albert continued to coordinate their stories by calling each other multiple times in the early morning hours, and ultimately spoke with each other on their cell phones at 2:22 a.m. Later, both Brian Albert and Higgins denied the existence of these phone calls, and then when confronted with their existence by a separate law enforcement agent at a separate proceeding, they coordinated the same exact lie, falsely claiming the multiple calls and answers were just butt dials. However, 5 minutes after the Higgins and Albert call, Miss McCabe performed a Google search on her phone at 2:27 that read, "House long to die in the cold," misspelling the first word. So that's the first section, chat. Let's get to the next one. Miss Reed searches for John O'Keefe. Miss Reed began the search for John. on January 29th, just before 5 a.m., when she awoke and realized he had not returned home. She phoned house defendant Jennifer McCabe, who already knew exactly what had happened to John. Miss McCabe insisted that Karen drive to the McCabe's house rather than driving to Fairview Road, which Reed did. The two of them were then joined by Carrie, and three of them left the McCabe residence. However, rather than going to Fairview, oddly, Jen directed them to go back to John's house, where Karen had just come from. After the three of them finally drove to Fairview, the illogical McCabe-directed route to 34 Fairview was intentional. Yes, Miss Davis, you can email me. I think it's in the description box. It allowed the House defendants more time to finish creating the scene and hiding evidence before Mr. O'Keefe's body was discovered on the Alberts lawn and the first responders had arrived. As they approached the house with Miss Roberts driving, Karen saw John almost immediately. She screamed for Miss Roberts to stop the vehicle and jumped from the moving car to run to John. She began rendering aid, including CPR, as the House defendants had planned. John's body was discovered in front of the Alberts' house near a flagpole and a fire hydrant on the left side of the property as seen from the roadside. The Ford Edge, which had been parked in a position to obscure Mr. O'Keefe's body in the middle of the night, had been moved. While Miss Roberts joined Miss Reed with administrating CPR, Miss McCabe did not help or even approach Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, she sat in the cab of the vehicle, called 911, and reported that there is a man passed out in the snow. Despite knowing that her brother-in-law, Brian Albert, a police officer and first responder, just feet away inside the house, Jen never went into the house or requested that the Alberts come down or to help Mr. O'Keefe. Rather, as John lay dying in the snow, Jen stood and watched with no fear, urgency, or even concern that her family members residing mere feet away. So that is the discovery, right? Next, let's get to this section. This is the investigation beginning. The Canton PD were the first on the scene shortly after 6 a.m. At the time, there was no evidence that John had been hit by a vehicle. In fact, the evidence suggested just the opposite. His body did not show signs of trauma commonly associated with being struck by a car. There were no bone fractures or trauma to his lower body, his torso, or any other part of his body as investigators would expect from a vehicle strike. Rather, John's injuries were consistent with being physically assaulted to the face and head and attacked by a dog. For good reason, the ranking Canton police officer at the time, Michael Lane, opined on a telephone call captured on a dash cam that John looked like he had been in a fight. Moreover, the initial search conducted by Canton police revealed that there was no vehicle debris on the lawn at 34 Fairview, let alone any debris at or near John's body. Not a single piece of taillight material was discovered on the lawn that morning or in the roadway, notwithstanding multiple searches and the use of a leaf blower to remove snow. Tellingly, despite the commotion outside, including more than a dozen first responders, 3 police cruisers, 2 ambulances, a ladder fire engine, all with their emergency lights flashing, and at least 2 civilian vehicles, plus Miss Reed's screams upon finding John's body, no one from the Alberts house, including police officer Brian Albert, ever went outside to see what was happening, let alone help. They wanted to avoid scrutiny from police investigators. Now, Lank was a longtime friend of the Alberts and the first law enforcement officer to enter the house. He spoke to the Alberts and the McCabes. Pursuant to their plan, the Alberts and the McCabes told Lank that John had never entered the house the night before. The Alberts and McCabe's statements were false. Mr. O'Keefe arrived at and entered the house or garage, where he was assaulted, attacked by the Alberts dog, and suffered a fatal injury to the back of his head. Despite John's injury being wholly inconsistent with the story the House defendants were now telling him, Neither Lank or any other of the Canton police officers searched the house to determine whether the occupants or anyone else were involved in John's death, nor did they request to search the occupants' cell phones, observe their bodies for evidence of a fight, or even secure the scene where John's body was found. They failed to do so because this bias, born of friendship and loyalty in favor of the Alberts.
Sorry about that, y'all. I'm back.
After Lank returned to the Canton Police Department 3 hours after the discovery of John's body.
Some of y'all probably wondering why I'm not talking too much. The reason I'm not talking too much is because, in my opinion, AV is more qualified to talk about this than me. So I'm deciding to let the more qualified person do the talking. So that's how that goes.
More than 2 hours after being interviewed by the Alberts' home and morning, Miss McCabe called Lank to report she recalled additional information. So Jen called Sergeant Lank. As a part of their plan to implicate Miss Reed and remove suspicion from the House defendants, she falsely told Sergeant Lank that Miss Reed told her twice that morning, "I hope I didn't hit him." More than a year later, in a separate proceeding, Jen changed her story on this topic yet again. In furtherance of the House defendants' plan, Jen then falsely reported that Miss Reed outright confessed to hitting John right after she first found him in the snow. All right, so that's Jen. Now let's talk about good old Mr. Proctor. Michael Proctor was assigned as a case officer and had primary responsibility for the investigation over John's death. Buchanan was Proctor's supervisor. Tully was a supervisory officer at the State Police Detective Unit, and thus supervised both Buchanan and Proctor. In their roles, Buchanan and Tully both knew all the times exactly the extent of Proctor's misconduct in investigating John's death. From the beginning, Proctor should have never been assigned as an investigating officer, let alone the lead investigator. He grew up and resides in Canton, is a good friend of the Alberts, and had known the family for years. Proctor and Julie Albert, Brian Albert's sister-in-law, they had their cell phone numbers. In fact, just days before John's death, Proctor communicated with Julie Albert about babysitting Proctor's minor child. Proctor's sister was also a close friend of Julie. In fact, Proctor's own mother referred to the Alberts as the Proctor's second family. Damn. The existence of these relationships is intentionally suppressed by Proctor and other members of the police, including Buchanan and Tully, in an effort to ensure that the House defendants were protected and that Karen's right to a fair investigation and trial were undermined. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully engage in a corrupt and biased investigation by not investigating inside of the House, interviewing the House defendants as friends rather than suspects. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully never searched for DNA evidence inside the house, never looked for ridge surfaces that could have caused a gash in the back of John's head, never inspected the house defendants' bodies for indication of bruising, cuts that resulted from an altercation, and did not search the house defendants' cell phones. This allowed potential evidence to be destroyed, disposed of, removed, and simply become unrecoverable. Proctor, Buchanan's, and Tully's interviews of the house defendants were also outside of normal protocol. They were all interviewed either at their home, the family member's home, their lawyer's home in the case of Higgy, their lawyer's office in the case of Brian Jr. and Caitlin Albert, their place of employment, or over the phone. These interviews were each untimely, unrecorded, and fundamentally designed to protect the House defendants, and the House defendants took full advantage of it. Specifically, Jen became the point person for all the House defendants, providing their false narrative to investigators. Damn, they're coming for Jen's neck, all right? Like, Ben, be careful. Watch out now. She managed and communicated details about the House defendants' messaging and investigation itself, including visiting Proctor's and other investigators' private residences, mapping out timelines. That's right, she made a timeline to coordinate statements with the other witnesses, leading group text message chains that were later partially deleted, and planning private meetings at all hours of the day and night. Indeed, these were never the acts of innocent witnesses seeking to help an investigation concerning the death of an alleged friend. Rather, they were predicate acts of a conspiracy among a group of people who, with a shared goal of deflecting their criminal exposure onto someone else. The remaining group texts that were not deleted, or that were recovered later, revealed some of their planning. For instance, on the evening of the 29th, Jen texted her sister Nicole, and Carrie, who was present when John's body was found, said, "Talk to cops," and kept it simple. Jen? Of course, there'd be no reason to report back to other House defendants about Roberts keeping it simple unless what really happened was more complicated. Proctor, Buchanan, and Massachusetts State Police never sought these communications. Rather, they were obtained by Karen Reed's defense attorneys, repeated motions to compel access to data on Jen's iPhone. So the defense team found these texts, not the police. Later, in group texts with Jen McCabe, Brian and Nicole Albert, Matt McCabe suggesting having Chris Albert publicize their crafted story to a reporter saying, "Ask Chris to ask some questions. Tell them the guy never went in the house." As an endorsement of the plan, Brian Albert responded, "Exactly." Importantly, the text messages from the House defendants' phones that were ultimately recovered and that provide a window into their conspiracy and misconduct, as well as the police full investigation, were not a product of Canton PD or Mass State Police investigative work. Rather, based on media reports raising serious questions about the police investigation and the House defendants' role in John's death. Another separate law enforcement agency began its own subsequent investigation. That investigation, not Massachusetts State Police, resulted in obtaining the House defendants' phones, taking statements from the House defendants, and conducted a separate proceeding, all of which MSP refused to do itself. Indeed, the evidence procured by the separate law enforcement agency investigation demonstrates the House defendants' conspiracy on unlawful conduct, as well as MSP's bias and corruption. Proctor and Buchanan initially interviewed the McCabes and Albert on the 29th at the McCabes' home in Canton, at which time they falsely stated that John never entered the house. Proctor and Buchanan did not interview Nicole Albert and Brian Higgins until February 3rd. So look at those dates, chat. January 29th, February 3rd. And did not interview Chris and Julie Albert until February 10th, even worse. Nearly 2 weeks after John's death and more than a week after Miss Reed was arrested and charged. Before both interviews, the McCabes and Alberts continued to coordinate their stories as evidenced in group texts. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully likewise failed to conduct a meaningful investigation into Higgins' involvement. When Proctor and Buchanan interviewed Higgins on February 3rd, Higgins presented the troopers with a select set of self-curated texts between himself and Karen. They learned that Brian, Higgins, and Karen had been exchanging flirty texts, and that Higgins reported at least one instance on which Karen and Higgins had kissed while John's house, in which Karen and Higgins had kissed while at John's house mere weeks before his death. Rather than pursuing Higgins as a possible suspect, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully neglected to investigate the matter further. They never interviewed Higgins again, even after the surveillance video revealed Higgins was suspiciously hiding his face in the halls and in the parking lot of Canton PD at 1:30 a.m. on the 29th. The video contradicts Higgins' statements about his actions that night. However, not only did Proctor, Buchanan, Tully, and MSP not investigate what Higgins was doing or what was in the bag, but they went so far as to hide this video from Karen and her criminal defense attorneys for years. Man, listen. Reed's defense did not receive these videos until after Reed stood trial for the first time. And even after that separate law enforcement agency's investigation revealed the late night phone calls between Brian Brian Albert and Brian Higgins, MSP failed to pursue either witness further or seek a full forensic extraction of Higgins' phone or even a simple call log from his cell provider.
Every moment before a big game matters.
So I gotta have my Sony XM6s with me.
Come on.
Always. Because when greatness is the goal, you gotta have the best
Come on.
to be the best.
For the most important night of the year, he counts on Harbor Freight.
When it was revealed that Miss Reed's defense team requested the preservation of the photos in order to forensically image them, this request was allowed by the court. Both men got rid of their phones within days of one another. Higgins went so far as to drive to a military base on Cape Cod,
go ahead and
remove the
skip
SIM card
on.
from his phone, cut the SIM
One
card
second,
with
y'all, I'm
scissors
about to
he
skip
bought with
on.
him. A first crucial step was to ensure the crime scene and evidence was not secured. This was a violation of MSP policy and well-established best practices for critical incident investigations. Specifically, the MSP Crime Laboratory requires proper processing of a crime, proper processing of evidence at major crime scenes, including crime scene photography and evidence processing and recovery of latent fingerprint, footwear, and tire track evidence. Neither of the MSP troopers involved in the investigation nor the CPD police officers on the scene secured the Albert's home or the area where John's body was found. The MSP did not take any photographs of the house, including any part of the yard where his body was found, until February 1st, more than 3 full days later. No photographs were ever taken of the inside of the garage of 34 Fairview. This intentional departure from established protocols permitted Proctor and Buchanan to generate false incriminating evidence against Karen and give the House defendants time to destroy the actual evidence. By approximately 2:30 on the 29th, before he had even met or interviewed Karen or seen her car, Proctor had already ordered seizure of the vehicle at her parents' home in Dighton. By 4:17, the vehicle was in the custody of MSP. The vehicle was then towed to CPD, the Sallyport, even though MSP has at least 2 closer barracks and Massachusetts was in the middle of a historic nor'easter. Proctor knew he had more leeway to manipulate the evidence regarding the SUV at Canton than at MSP's facilities, and he knew he needed to have that evidence in close proximity to the crime scene at 34 Fairview. Before the vehicle had arrived at the garage, Karen's Lexus taillight had a minor crack, but was intact. The crack occurred when Karen backed into John O'Keefe's car at 5 a.m. as she was leaving to search for him. That incident was captured on video. Buchanan and Proctor followed the vehicle from Dighton and arrived at Canton at 5:35, just moments after the tow truck with the Lexus. At some point after the vehicle arrived at the Sallyport, the right rear tail light was almost entirely destroyed. Video taken from different angles in the Sallyport shows Buchanan, Proctor, and Police Chief Berkowitz and other individuals near the tail light. But notably, no video captures the tail light's appearance at the precise time it arrived at the Sallyport. The available surveillance video from the Sallyport, as well as CPD access card swipe log obtained by separate law enforcement agencies, revealed seemingly unfeathered access to the Sallyport by a myriad of individuals throughout the evening of the 29th, including just before and just after 5:30. One or more of them destroyed the taillight, secretly took pieces of it into their possession, and then planted some of them in various places at 34 Fairview on Mr. O'Keefe's clothes. Oof. This is riveting, guys. Knowing that there were video cameras both inside and outside the Sallyport, Proctor and Buchanan worked together to obscure their role in manipulating the right rear taillight, then ultimately to present false evidence at the first criminal trial. Specifically, Proctor directed Buchanan to secure video footage from the surveillance cameras located both inside and outside the Sally Port garage, which he did. These videos were manipulated in two significant ways. First, the critical 42-minute portion was deleted from the footage from the Sally Port front wall camera, the portion of 5:08 to 5:50, which included the exact time Karen's Lexus arrived at the garage. This footage would have shown that the taillight was intact. Second, footage from the Sally Port back wall was inverted, which made the right side of Karen's vehicle appear to be the left side, and vice versa. Another camera, main driveway side exterior, captured the back end of the Lexus as it arrived to CPD, but it was too grainy to decipher the condition of the passenger taillight. The videos from inside and outside the Sally Port and Proctor's request for Buchanan to obtain it was intentionally hidden from Karen Reed and her defense attorneys for more than 2 years to avoid scrutiny. The video was then sprung on them immediately before and during the first criminal trial. One driveway camera footage was not revealed to the defense until just prior to the start of the second trial. In fact, Buchanan presented one part of the video during his direct testimony under questioning by the Assistant District Attorney, Adam Lowney. Buchanan narrated the video to the jury, correctly identified that Proctor was at the rear of the vehicle, but claimed he never approached the right rear taillight of the vehicle. That testimony was entirely false. As he well knew, the video that Buchanan authenticated as fair and accurate was actually neither fair nor accurate because it had been inverted. Proctor was actually behind the right taillight for a significant period, but because it was inverted, it appeared that he was behind the left taillight. They hoped this would allow Buchanan to lie about this issue at trial without detection. With this video and Buchanan's false testimony,
Yeah, you wouldn't think hangovers would be a thing.
I forgot to mention that, and that's my bad.
This Thanksgiving.
Is that how you imagine?
and Buchanan's false testimony, the MSP, Proctor, and Buchanan attempted to mislead the jury in order to conceal the tampering with implanting of taillight material. Proctor and Buchanan also, I lost my spot. Proctor and Buchanan also took taillight pieces from the Sally Port, brought them back to Fairview to plant them in a location where John's body was found, and falsified various documents in an attempt to hide their conduct. In warrant application to Stoughton District Court and Norfolk Superior Court for searches of Google's electronic records, Ring videos, Karen's phone and Karen's vehicle, cell towers, and other sources of information, Proctor swore he seized Karen's vehicle from her parents' home at 5:30 and had the vehicle towed to Camp PD. Reports shared by Dighton police revealed that the Lexus was towed from Dighton at 4:17. He said 5:30. Proctor's assertion that he seized it at 5:30 was intentionally false to hide the fact that the car was in police custody for 73 minutes longer than indicated in his sworn affidavits. Proctor maintained that false narrative because it would hide the exact time frame when he had the opportunity to remove pieces from the taillight from Karen's vehicle and bring them back to the house so he could later claim the pieces had been there since 12:30 on the 29th. However, unbeknownst to him, driveway video from the Reed residence in Dighton and a report written by the Dighton police revealed that Proctor lied and revealed the true and accurate time the Lexus came to MSP's possession. Proctor also deposited the SUV taillight pieces that he and others removed from the vehicle of the Sally Port on John's clothes. Proctor retrieved John's clothes from the floor of the hospital where he was pronounced deceased. Instead of securing the clothes in a sealed container or a bag, as protocol requires, Proctor and Buchanan drove them around in his car all day and then placed them at the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office for at least 6 days, where they were accessible to Proctor, Buchanan, and other MSP troopers. Proctor and Buchanan failed to create a log to document the chain of custody for the clothing. Therefore, and by design, there is no record of when and how many times and under what circumstances Proctor and Buchanan touched, manipulated, handled, or otherwise tampered with that clothing. The MSP Evidence Submission Handbook dictates that chain of custody begins at the time of collection and that the collector seal those packages as soon as possible after collection to ensure integrity of the evidence and the items and limit loss of transient evidence. Here, in violation of MSP's stated policy, the chain of custody for all of John O'Keefe's clothing, as well as a dozen pieces of tail-light material, does not begin until March 14th, nearly 2 months after it was collected, when Proctor finally submitted to the MSP crime lab. At some point before providing those clothes to the same lab, Proctor and or Buchanan placed pieces of the SUV taillight on them, where they were identified by the crime lab in 2023. Proctor also planted pieces of taillight on Karen's bumper while it was still in his possession at the Sallyport garage, where he then claimed to have recovered them on February 1st. Proctor planted this evidence to make it look like these shards originated from a cocktail glass that John was holding when he exited the waterfall. Evidently, Proctor did not plan on Karen's defense attorneys insisting on forensic testing on the glass shards that showed they did not match the cocktail glass in John's possession. Wow. In fact, the 5 glass pieces originated from multiple different sources. One shard of glass in the bumper did match the piece of glass that had been in Proctor's possession during the investigation.
Really?
The only way for the glass to have ended up on the SUV bumper is that Proctor planted it there. Death of John O'Keefe. Ooh-wee, chat, we're almost there. Let's keep going. Proctor, Buchanan's, and MSP's investigation was rife with other examples of corruption and bias. For example, despite the evidence that Brian Albert may have had surveillance footage at the house, neither Proctor or Buchanan nor any member of MSP issued subpoenas.
We'll get into all the vicissitudes of the American economy. Are things going up? Are things going down? What the hell is going on?
He issued subpoenas to Ring or any other home surveillance company. Right? Like, why wouldn't that be the first thing that you do? Why wasn't that?
Why?
Chad, why wasn't that the first thing that they did? Even if somebody got hit by a car outside, hey, can I look at your surveillance footage? Why was
Idiots.
They've got a point here.
Idiots.
Proctor and the MSP also failed to track down any other important witnesses and evidence. For example, Brian Loughran, a town of Canton snowplow operator, turned out to be one of the most significant witnesses in the entire criminal trial. Proctor and his colleagues never spoke to him during the investigation, and only did so once Loughran was interviewed by a separate law enforcement agency and provided statements inconsistent with MSP's narrative 18 months after Reed had already been indicted and was waiting for trial. Specifically, Mr. Loughran drove his snowplow by the house multiple times in the early mornings of that night, including at 2:30 and 3:30. He reported that there was nobody on the lawn at 34 Fairview, nor any cars in front of the house at 2:30. Mr. Loughran believes that he would have seen a body had it been on the lawn where O'Keefe was found several hours later. Instead, the second time he drove by the house at 3:30, Mr. Loughran saw a Ford Edge in front of the Albert's home that had not been there the hour before, which was then parked where his body was later found. Brian Albert drove a Ford Edge at the time. Oh, it was your car. However, the Ford Edge was gone by the time Karen arrived at the house at 6:30, and in its place, she discovered John's body. Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully never made any effort during the actual investigation to track down Mr. Loughran or any information related to the Ford Edge. Proctor also secretly made efforts to protect the Albert family members during the investigation who may have had a role in Mr. O'Keefe's death. Witness Julie Nagel told Proctor that Colin Albert, here we go, calling time. Brian Albert's nephew had been present at the house the night of the 20th, 29th, but Proctor omitted his name from the official summary of Miss Nagel's interview, even though he listed all others who had been present at the house with Colin. When Miss Reed's lawyers followed a motion to obtain Proctor's notes, his handwritten memorialization of Julie Nagel interviewed mirrored almost exactly what was typed up in the police report, except for the words, Colin Albert. Proctor's interactions with Kevin Albert, Brian Albert's brother, during the investigation also demonstrate his close relationship with the Albert family, as well as his propensity for violating MSP rules in Massachusetts criminal laws. Repeatedly, Proctor used his personal cell phone to speak with Kevin, a Canton police officer, instead of official channels when he was coordinating interviews of witnesses, even though CPD was recused from the investigation. Further, the middle of Proctor's investigation in the summer of 22, it discovered that Proctor and Kevin were out drinking alcohol and driving in Proctor's cruiser in Cape Cod. At the end of the night, Kevin Albert forgot to bring home his gun and badge and left them in Proctor's cruiser. Their drinking and driving in Proctor's vehicle violated both MSP policies as well as several Massachusetts criminal statutes, and later highlights the conflicted nature of MSP's investigation. Moreover, because of their close relationship, Proctor, Buchanan, and Tully worked together with CPD in hiding certain videos from Karen's criminal defense team. Specifically, upon information and belief, MPD and CPD collaborated to keep exculpatory surveillance video from Karen's criminal defense team in preparation for the first trial. Those videos captured Brian Higgins' activity at CPD parking lot and inside the police station shortly after the physical altercation at the house that led to John's death. They demonstrated that Higgins' statements about his post-house party activities the night of Mr. O'Keefe's death were not accurate. On information and belief, CPD knew it had this evidence and worked with MSP to keep it from Karen. Additionally, upon information and belief, CPD set its auto-delete function for saving certain surveillance videos at the Sally Port to 30 days, therefore assuring the immediate destruction and likely additional exculpatory evidence. The 30-day auto-delete setting conflicts with the fact that CPD videos were shared with the defense over the course of 3 years. Therefore, either the setting was changed to prevent the defense expert from auditing the footage, or the footage was obtained within 30 days of January 29th and withheld from.
We're about to do something that was pretty insane here. We are using the new pigskin and pigtail press. We are actually going to try to push it to its limits. We have an 8-color design today. We could actually probably push this to 12, 15, 20. The sky's the limit. Might be a new screen print challenge, honestly. Now, I have gone ahead and registered a lot of this up, so we should be green for go. We actually got something interesting. We're starting with a white shirt, and we'll move to a dark shirt because I have an underbase that also lined up. And get this loaded. And as always, we are going to start light to dark. We'll also go to
29th and withheld from the defense. The indictments, trials, and the aftermath. Karen was arrested on February 1st pursuant to a criminal complaint charging her with manslaughter, among other charges. She was required to post $50,000 for bail, and the court imposed several other conditions of release, including loss of her driver's license and stay-away orders from the O'Keefe family and John O'Keefe's home. Karen was later rearrested on June 9th after being indicted for a second-degree murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. Her bail was set at $100,000 by the Norfolk County Superior Court. In February of 23, her bail was reduced to $80,000 at the defense's request. Ms. Reed was tried twice by the Commonwealth. The first trial started in April of 24 and ended on July 1st after the court ordered a mistrial because of a hung jury. On June 18th, following another nearly 2-month trial, Karen was acquitted of all charges associated with the death of John, murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene of an accident resulting in death. For the first time,
Ah, come on now. Damn it. Come on. Let me get to the counts, see if it'll work. How you gonna get this far and fuck up on me? Come on, work yourself out. Come on. Damn it. I hate I have to end it this way, guys, but I hope you... See y'all later. Peace.